that wonderful introduction. I am a huge college access nerd. I've been doing college access and college admissions over 25 years now. So that I'm 50, so that's a really long time. I've been working with different admissions departments. I sat on both sides of the desks as an admissions person and also as somebody who is a college counselor. I work specifically in looking in and around marginalized communities or communities of color and college access. And I work as an independent college counselor and also as a consultant to college access groups, orgs, and colleges themselves on developing more inclusive admissions policies. So today, because of who's in this room, and these are the ones I love to do the most, are navigating college admissions for AAPI community. And I've been watching this and working in this realm for those 25 years, and there's been a lot of change. I'm going to focus a lot of what I'm talking about that based on what AAPI community is looking at. I want to do a little bit of defining what the AAPI community is. You can be multiracial and be in the AAPI community. You can identify as AAPI if you are biracial. Some people identify in 2 different ethnic groups. I just did a large session with students who are both Black and Asian and navigating how they apply to school in that area. I do have some opinions on being Asian American in the admissions process that I wanted to share now. First of all, the number one question I always get is like, should I tell people I'm Asian in the college admissions process? And the answer is absolutely yes, you should. Everything about college admissions is we're looking for the authentic self. If you go in and you try and hide your being Asian American, it's going to be very difficult to write an application that reflects your authentic self. Also, your name goes on the application. So if I wanted to go into the application and I said, I'm not going to talk about anything about being Asian, and I go in with my name, Sally Chio Matsuishi, it's going to be pretty easy to tell that I am also an Asian American person. Also, this is the first adult choice that you will be making in a field like this of how you're going to present yourself to the outside world as an adult. And just from a identity formation perspective, I really encourage all of us as Asian Americans to 100% go into the world as our authentic selves with our authentic voices. So I just wanted to clear that question from the beginning because it's usually one that I get all the time. But so the second question I wanted to clear before I go into all this is the Harvard lawsuit and what the Harvard lawsuit meant. Okay, first of all, there's some things we should know about the Harvard lawsuit. If you didn't hear about it, Harvard was sued for having racist practices against Asian Americans and because of the fact that they were Asians that were highly qualified within the realm of the outside world seemed as if they were getting not preferred treatment in terms of getting towards admissions. And what I want to talk about is what the implications of this is. First of all, the people who brought the suit and paid for the suit are actually right-wing, politically right-wing people who are trying to dismantle affirmative action. Because if they could use Asians somewhat as a Trojan horse of getting in there versus on behalf of white students, because there have been several court cases on behalf of white students that were not successful, that they then partnered with a specific small group of Asian Americans in this fight. What I can tell you from my side and from the admission side is yes, we do get what we call topped out Asian American students, perfect grades, perfect scores, 4.0s across the board, unweighted, perfect standardized test scores. And there's a ton of them, right? What you don't see is how holistic admissions at the Harvard level is. Just because you got straight A's and perfect scores does not mean that you get into Harvard. It's not a guarantee. And what we were finding with a lot of Asian American applications of people in this category is the rest of the application was not that filled out. It wasn't that fleshed out. When we looked at other parts of the application, it wasn't detailed. It didn't have the nuances. We didn't have a chance to see who these students really were beyond the grades and scores. Now, there's reasons for that. And I'm going to go through that in my presentation. But I want to make it clear that in terms of admissions and Asian Americans, the best way that you can tackle admissions as Asian Americans is find ways to be our most authentic selves, all the nuances of our being, not just our grades and scores. But like if I was one of Jong's sons, I would talk about what it smells like in Jung's kitchen and how you can hear the clanking of her dishes as she cooks and how the dishes come out one after the other, each giving a piece of what Korean American experience is. And the fact on the back of a wall in her dining room is a tapestry of the Last Supper with Jesus eating behind you with you. It tells you a lot about what's in that room. If the essay reflected that experience, that's a Harvard essay. If the essay just said, I have high grades and scores and I want to be an engineer, that is not a holistic experience and that would be rejected. But from the outside, people said, but he had straight A's in perfect scores and he didn't get in. Why didn't he get in? It's because it's what's on the page and in that application that makes the difference between admission and rejection. So that's where we're going next. So here we go. All right, does anybody have any questions? Okay. I feel weird just talking at you. Okay, so where do we start when we start thinking about college applications? Okay, I put up 4 terms here that is very common in admissions departments. The admissions departments, we have conferences, we have think tanks, I'm one of the consultants, and people are brought in to start thinking about how we talk about who we're looking for. These are the 4 terms that we have come up with in an analysis of people. So you won't necessarily see these in the applications. As a matter of fact, you 100% won't. You'll hear other types of things, but when we talk about it around that admissions table, these are the terms that we use. One is defined purpose. Does this student have a defined sense of purpose? Notice it doesn't say what purpose, right? It doesn't say they need to be lawyers, doctors, and engineers, right? It's just a defined sense of purpose. Your defined sense, I read a great application essay earlier. Actually, it was yesterday. I think it was, yeah, it was yesterday. And the defined sense of purpose for that kid had all to do with creating more race, class, and gender inclusive gaming. Now, people would think that, oh, he shouldn't talk about gaming. He shouldn't talk about like playing video games. But this essay was tremendous. It was so great. And it's being passed around to different admissions people that we're all looking at like, wow, this is one great essay because it was a clear sense of purpose and he knew a lot about the subject and he had a lot of opinions. So define sense of purpose. The other one is called intersectional thinking. This means, do you say, I want to be an engineer because I hear engineers make a lot of money? Or do you say, I want to be a pediatrician because I like my pediatrician? Or does it say, I want to be an attorney because my dad is an attorney? These are the 3 most common things, by the way, that I hear a lot and read a lot in college application essays. The problem with these 3 ideas is it doesn't tell me anything about you, and it doesn't tell me anything of your understanding of these 3 fields. These could be true. You could have these feelings and these thoughts, but the problem is I don't know how it pertains to the personal story that's you and your authentic self. Intersectional thinking means an intersection, like where 2 cars come together at an intersection. So the kid with the gaming essay, he talked about his love of gaming, but he's also looking at it at the intersection of sociology and the study of race, class, and gender. Then I get a better idea of what he's looking at and what he's thinking about. It's intersectional thinking. So you could be like, I want to do environmental studies, but do you want to do environmental studies in connection with access to education? I read an application last year about that. That was really great. It was about climate change that caused the Great Migration from Central America to the United States, right? Which then made it so there could be no more infrastructure in education, which made for an entire generation of Central Americans that did not have access to the education that would bring them out of poverty. And that kid was really interested in looking at the intersection between climate justice and education. Terrific essay. couldn't been, it just blew us out of the water, right? So that's that intersectional thinking. It can be of other things that are somewhat not this serious too. I read a really great one last year. It was the intersection of cooking and criticism. That this person really loved reading cooking magazines, but realized that a lot of the cooking magazines were written by white people, and particularly white women, and that it wasn't lensed through people of color. And as a young Black man, he wanted to have more culturally specific and conducive criticism of cooking and restaurants and food culture, intersection between ethnic studies and cooking criticism. Great essay. Okay, authentic pursuit. This always sounds cool because it sounds like some sort of board game. What is authentic pursuit? Authentic pursuit is, I am a shameless nerd. I want to know how nerdy you really are. Do you spend hours researching like different serial killers and how that they were able to, be not caught, and what was the psychological background, and oh my gosh, the Zodiac killer was in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I drove out to the part in San Francisco and I looked at it and did look at it for myself to see if I could find any more clues. That's authentic pursuit, right? Authentic pursuit is how have you chased this both inside and out of the classroom. So I bring up the serial killer one because I just read a really great application essay of somebody who wants to study behavioral science and criminology, and specifically looking at its connection to gender. But what was great about the essay is it talked about all of these other places. And I kid you not, she talked about she drove to this place in San Francisco to go check it out herself. And she'd read 3 different books, and she was on these, she had read this in her psych texts in this AP psychology class, and she took notes and she thinks she sees something. This is authentic pursuit. This is probably the most important one of all of them, because authentic pursuit answers the question of how nerdy you'll be on that campus. And it also says how genuine your studies are. And the last one is intellectual vitality. Intellectual vitality is absolutely connected to authentic pursuit. So intellectual vitality is just the nerdy part. What classes did you take? What books did you read outside the curriculum? How did you ever go to a talk? Did you sneak? I read this really great application essay about a kid who was interested in aeronautical engineering, but is a low-income kid and didn't know how he could get into this thing. So he read on the Stanford website that they were having a conference about these things, and he thought, I could get on Caltrain and I could just like hang out and see if I could just sneak in. And he actually ended up figuring out how to sneak into a conference on Stanford's campus. This was 2 years ago. He now goes to Stanford, and how he snuck into these lectures and he met people, and he even went as far as like asking and posing questions and talking to the professors afterwards. And he had paid none of this conference, and he wrote his essay about how he snuck in and all the things he learned. Intellectual vitality, authentic pursuit, intersectional thinking, defined purpose. All of those things line up in those essays. Okay, so these are the 4 things everybody's always looking for. So in everything we talk about going forward, that's what we're doing. Okay, college lists. Okay, so do not do your college list preparation by going to your college you want to go to and hitting the admissions tab. Colleges have paid millions of dollars, and I'm not exaggerating here, on marketing firms and psychological studies about what teenagers want to see in their admissions tab. So if you, normally I would do this in live, but I won't do it here because it's weird on Zoom. If you go to a bunch of different colleges admissions tabs, I'll tell you the 3 things that you'll see. You'll see multi-ethnic people on the lawn with a professor taking a class outside. You will see multi-ethnic people, usually with a guitar or some sort of instruments, in a dorm room together hanging out. And more recently, we hear you guys like gyms. So all the schools put in fancy gyms. I went to Vassar College undergrad. We are not a sports school. I would argue that 100% of the students at Vassar College are the kid who got hit by the ball in high school. We are not athletes, never were. But we started dropping in that US World and News Report because we had not good gym facilities. We spent gosh, I think in the $50 million range to put in a fancy gym with a juice bar, and I don't know, just so that we could have those photographs and that people would rate us as having good athletic facilities. And so we went back up in the ratings. Those USA World News ratings, by the way, are worth hundreds of millions of dollars to schools, and we'll do just about anything to stay in that top 20, right? So you will see gyms, you will see multi-ethnic people, you will see Black people. If you see Black people or Asian people multiple times and it's the same Black person or Asian person, what do you know? There are not that many Black people or Asian people on that campus. Okay, so there are certain things that you can learn from that. You will also see stuff about study abroad and all these other things. Okay, we know what you're looking for. We know, by the way, it informs all of our tours. I was a tour guide. I was a person that walked backwards, before I got into the admissions department at Vassar. We were informed all the time on how to answer questions, of what to highlight, and it was all based on research that was done by firms that we had hired. What is interesting is that you will note that all the fancy schools have hired the same 5 firms to do things, so we'll all look the same. So the chances of you getting information that is authentic to you and yourself on the admissions page is very, very low. Okay, so how do you find information? Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to add my experience to what she was saying about how the colleges will target diverse populations with these pictures of diversity. So when I took Tasha and her friends on a college tour, back several years ago, I guess there were my 2 kids and another Chinese American gal and a Caucasian gal with us on this college tour in UC San Diego. And lo and behold, the next year, the catalog had a picture of us strolling through the campus. And I thought, well, they wanted diversity. They wanted to show Asian American family. And then your thing about Vassar, remember, you helped recruit or my niece, Chinese American, as a volleyball player. And I had another friend that got recruited into Brown, as another athlete. So your story about Vassar is very interesting, because I guess they were trying to build
We
up
are always looking for athletes, because athletes do not normally apply to Vassar. And we want to be competitive. Volleyball is the one place that we are. There's 2 places that we are competitive in sports: is women's lacrosse and women's volleyball. But like men's basketball, the Vassar Princeton game was always be like 117-8.
Well, I'm sure they appreciated my niece, who was, Chinese American.
Yeah, she hit 2 boxes. Certainly, yeah. So anyway, when you go and look for, where do you look, right? How do I figure it out? I will refer you to 3 places of where you should look instead of the admissions tab. One is the departments. So if you're interested in, remember that intersectional thinking, right? So you want to go into 2 different departments and go to the department's webpage and see what kind of research is happening, see what kind of clubs are happening, see who they have as professors. Then you want to go to the course catalog in those departments, and there's always a link from those departments, and you look at their courses. You can read all the different types of courses that are available. When you write your essays later on, you should keep note of all the classes you felt were interesting, because they're going to ask you, why do you want to go to Vassar? And the answer is right there in that course catalog. I would love to take blah, blah, blah class. And what is interesting, and here's a trick. So you'll see a class, and the class you're really interested in, it'll say the name of the professor. Cut and paste the name of the professor back into the general search for that college, and it'll take you to that professor's webpage, and it'll also show you all the publications of that professor. Then you have a name of somebody you'd like to study under. So authentic pursuit, right? Intellectual curiosity, and intersectional thinking. You're now in that realm of looking, and that will make your application stronger and your essays stronger. Because you won't just say, oh, I want to go to Vassar because it's a top liberal arts college outside of New York and has an excellent reputation in the humanities. And Johnson went there too. because you don't want to tell the college or the university anything about itself it already knows. And by the way, the size of the school and the type of school it is doesn't answer the question of why you want to go there. It would be better to answer the question of why do you want to go to Vassar by saying, I would love to take Dr. Hereford's course in examination of religion and marginalized people in the United States, because I'm interested in working in also within the biology department in the pre-med program that's looking specifically on issues facing women. And in my intersectional work of wanting to eventually work with Asian American women, I believe Dr. Hereford's classes and Dr. Nixon's classes in these two areas will give me the best possible education for my pursuit of being able to better serve women of color in medicine as I go forward in becoming a doctor. See what the difference is between saying I want to go there because it's small liberal arts school and being very specific. Also, in doing this, you'll figure out if this is a school for you. You might go to all these different departments and not find the things that you want. And then, you know, that shouldn't be on my list, right? But a good college counselor should be able to help you fix and define this list. Because those of us who have been doing this a long time, if you tell us what you're interested in, we should be able to give you a list and then you can go look at these things. Okay, college trips. You could go like Sue, and you could go and walk backwards with someone like me on campus, and we'll show you all the buildings and tell you all the stories and all that stuff. Again, made by marketing people. Well, they're kind of fun though, and you can actually talk to and ask questions. But stay on campus, go to where everybody eats, walk around, go to the departments, look outside the departments, they'll have bulletin boards, look at those kiosky things where people staple up flyers for what's going on campus, pull 2 or 3 things that you'd want to pursue, write them down and keep them. Because later on, when you write that why do I want to go there essay, you can say, I was on campus and I saw that the Asian American group was going to do a symposium on comfort women. And as I pursue my degree in looking at marginalized women of color in medicine, I would definitely had gone to this symposium that was given October 17th of last year. So when I, as the admissions person, because one of the things that is very, very important in college admissions is we were looking for people who are going to come. If I accept you, are you going to come? Because 100% has to do with that USA World and News report. If we take a lot of people that don't actually come versus admissions versus matriculations, if we take a lot of people who don't come, we drop in that list, right? So what do? We're looking at those applications and we're looking for the kids who really know what they're looking for on campus, because the kids who really know what they want, we know are they're more likely to come. So that's why when you write those why essays are almost more important than the personal essays and other essays. People oftentimes throw them away because they're sort of shorter, but they're really important in that what they call demonstrated interest. Okay, so college magazines, you can go to any admissions office and they have all these publications out. Take them all home, because then you can actually see what's happening on campus and it'll highlight certain professors and things like that. And again, you can write those essays. Oh, sorry. Okay. Pitfalls. Don't do the following things. So you're looking for colleges and you have a great college on your list and you like it, and then you run into somebody that says, oh, you want to apply to Yale, really? Because my friend's brother's girlfriend hated it there. Okay, you do not know your friend's brother's girlfriend. You don't know what she was doing. You don't even know if she actually went to Yale, right? Make decisions based on your own experiences and on your own looking at a place. The second one, coach handbags. Okay, I took a group of kids to Santa Clara University, which is a terrific school, by the way. And they got on campus, and the kid says, "Oh, I saw 2 girls with Coach handbags, so this place girls here must be stuck up, so I don't want to go here." Please do not judge an entire campus on the handbags of 2 girls you saw one day. I don't know what their general attitudes on the world is. I don't know anything about Coach handbags. But we're judging campuses based on opportunities like research and internships and professors and mentors and study abroad and financial aid and all of these things, not on Coach handbags. And then the third one, this is a very popular one amongst Asian American populations I said. Somebody will say, oh, You have to go to Harvard because I have a rich friend and that's where his son went. And so that's where you should go. And then you will go there and you will be rich. Okay, there's tons of different colleges for which it's better to go to the one that's a good fit for you, where you will be able to thrive, where you will have the support that you will need in order to do well and get the launch that you need. We do not necessarily have to go with the uncle's rich friend's son's decision, because A, we don't know him again, and two, we're looking for fit. We're not looking for necessarily what other people think about what it is. You will find, and this is not always the case, but I have found it often, certainly the case in my extended family, is that a lot of our families are immigrants and they come from other places and they only know 3 or 4 schools. And there are actually thousands of schools, and there's also about 100 top schools. But generally people say Stanford, UC Berkeley, right? And that's it, right? And there are so many more schools than that. Not to say that those 2 schools are not great, but finding the right match, you got to look all over. Okay, next one. Let's see. The list. Okay, you want reach, match, and likely schools. You want to make reasoned decisions. I just talked about that. It should be 12. Please do not apply to 32 schools. There's no, first of all, there are not 32 schools that match who you are. 2, you will die writing that many applications, and if you spread yourself that thin, the schools that you actually want to go to, your essays won't be any good. Okay, I do count all UCs together as one application because it's a common app to one place, right? But the other schools, no. Okay, so I'm going to talk about UC versus private schools and post-COVID. UCs took a huge, and state schools took a huge billions of dollars hit during COVID. They shut down completely, and they just were bleeding money, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars a week. All right, so they are now on the mend. They're trying to get back. They lost a lot of students. Also, they changed the law because it was changing in the first place, to take fewer international students, partially during the Trump administrations, and fewer out-of-state students. That's where the money came from, because out-of-state students and international students pay full rack rate at UCs. So with the new law saying that that cannot be the case, it ended up happening in the same period of time. So UCs ended up losing billions of dollars because of COVID and the shutdown, and then they couldn't bring in the people who brought them money. Okay, so they're in a pinch right now. So they're still wonderful institutions. They still, I mean, if you want a wide breadth of ability of things to study, you want to be on a campus where every voice known to man is on it, yes, UCs are a great thing. No going in there, though, that the impaction rates, meaning what majors are still open to you and that you're able to apply to, is now really diminished. The amount of classes that are available is a little bit more difficult to access, and you should factor in there, because just in terms of the data, a lot of people going into, the majority of people going to UCs and state schools are not getting out in 4 years. So please factor into how long it may take you, or that you may have to take a gap year if you want to graduate in 4 years, and then make sure that you stack to, but it might take longer. Just be prepared for that. This is also, but by the way, what UC is telling people as well. So private schools. Private schools, you will look and you will see a giant price tag, and that will terrify you. Here's what you can do. Every school now is required to have a calculator on it. And you can just, in less than 10 minutes, you can take your tax returns and you can put into a general calculator, and it'll show you how much institutional aid you will get, and it'll show you how much government aid you will get. Now, these calculators tend to be very, very conservative, right? Because they don't want to promise people money that they're not going to deliver, right? So if you are a specialized student and you come from a marginalized background, in which some cases Asian Americans are, and other places they aren't, you could get more money than it's determined by the calculator. And you should really talk to a college counselor, and they'll be able to tell you what pots of money are available to you. But I'm going to go into financial aid later. Okay. Community college to transfer. If you live in San Francisco, this is a really viable option because community college is free. in San Francisco, so you could get 2 years of college free and then go into that transfer. It also avoids some of the problems with being able to get classes at UCs right now that are huge because there's a sort of a teaching shortage and those kinds of things. In many cases, students like it better because like your biology 101 class isn't 750 people like it is at UC Berkeley. It's actually a smaller class at community college and might be a better way for you to start. You can also save money too if you're living at home and you're commuting or you're going online. It's a very viable thing. Now, the transfer rate out of different community colleges is different. Santa Rosa has a higher, Santa Rosa JC has a higher transfer rate than College of Marin. There are community colleges all over the California, and some people actually go and live by these other community colleges because they have really great transfer rates and higher GPAs to transfer rates to the top UCs. So you should look around and see what you're majoring in and what's available and whether or not that community college has those classes available to you. And then the guaranteed transfer to UCs, please remember it's not to UC Berkeley necessarily, it's to a UC, which could be any of the UCs. So some kids think that it's an automatic to certain schools. It was at one point, it is no longer. And then transfer to private schools too. More and more people are seeing this transfer to private schools. They're just, the requirements are different. The only burden of this is you have to apply twice. Okay. For either UC or private schools. Okay. Did COVID, I did financial aid. I'll do more financial aid later. Okay.